Hey guys, and welcome to the 29th installment of Updated Builds, a series of videos where I go back over Warframes that I already made one or more videos about and I bring their builds up to date. Now today we're going to take a look at a frame that I think is really cool and I like her a lot, but unfortunately I don't see her played an awful lot, and that frame is Nyx. So as always, I'm going to go through all the builds that I use on Nyx and I switch between them based on what I'm doing, and the two builds I have for you today are number one, a Chaos Freak build, which focuses on mind control and chaos and uses both of their augments, and number two, an Assimilate setup, which focuses on chaos and its augment. And let's start it off with the Chaos Freak setup, which is using Energy Siphon as its aura. This is mostly to get some extra energy because we're not using a ton of efficiency, so the extra energy takes you get from Energy Siphon are really nice. Then I wanted a lot of duration, so I'm running primed continuity and narrow-minded, and don't worry if you don't have the primed version of continuity, the standard version is going to be just fine. Then we have streamline for a little bit of efficiency, stretch, overextended, and cunning drift to kind of balance out narrow-minded and give us a ton of range. And this is a really good combination of stats for the Chaos Sphere augment, which augments your chaos and makes you leave behind a Chaos Sphere, go figure, that will apply chaos to enemies if they run into it instead of just snapping chaos onto enemies when you cast the ability. The reason why you generally want more duration and range for this augment than if you were to use chaos normally is that the size of the sphere is of course affected by range, so the more range you have, the bigger the sphere is going to be, which is always good. But also because the sphere only has a fraction of the duration that you have on chaos, and it shrinks down as the duration is running out. So you want a ton of duration to slow down the shrinking, otherwise it's going to be gone in a couple of seconds. Then to add a little bit of extra beefiness, I have redirection, though if you are running the Infested and you don't have arcane resistance, I would recommend you go with Vitality instead to counter toxin procs. And finally, I'm using the Mind Freak augment for mind control as well, though you don't have to use this, so you can swap it out for something else. And what this does is it gives your mind control target 500% extra damage, which can be really strong if you snag something like an Eximus Bombard, Napalm, Scorch, or even a Heavy Gunner. Now the reason why you don't have to run the Mind Freak augment if you don't want to is because a lot of the good targets to snag with mind control don't do a ton of damage on their own. There are things like Haika Masters, Boilers, and Broodmothers where you get their minions as well. Or things like MOAs that will crowd control enemies, or Ancient Healers that will provide you with damage reduction and stuff like that. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. If you want to have a lot of Hayekas running around with a Hayeka Master, or a lot of Infested running around with a Boiler or a Broodmother, you don't have to use the augment, but if you want to pick up like Eximus Bombards and Napalms, you can definitely pick it up. It's going to help quite a bit. Now, as far as the arcanes are concerned, arcane resistance is really good if you're going up against the Infested because it gives you a flat 80% chance to resist a toxin status effect completely. But the best one overall, in my opinion, would be Arcane Energize, which gives you a 40% chance to restore 100 extra energy to you and nearby allies whenever you pick up an energy orb. This is going to help you quite a bit with energy sustain. This is hands down the best setup you can run if you just hate people, because it can do pretty much any mission type in the game on its own. Even interceptions, which tend to be very busy and kind of annoying at times if you're running them solo, that is if you're not blowing the entire tile setup with Quaking Banshee, are pretty chill because instead of hacking the consoles, the enemies will just slap each other around, assuming that you keep an eye out on your chaos timer and you refresh it when it's running out. It's really good for defense missions as well, though it tends to slow them down because as soon as you cast chaos, the enemies will just turn on each other, and instead of rushing the cryopod, they will fight where they originally were, so you might have to run around and clean up afterwards. And it's awesome for survivals, though it may make them feel a little bit boring and uneventful at times because, once again, instead of fighting you and bomb rushing you, the enemies are fighting amongst each other. This is most noticeable with the Infested. Also, since we have a ton of duration and we have a little bit of efficiency as well, chaos is pretty efficient as well, so you can use it as sort of an oh shit button when something bad happens. It's not going to do a ton of damage for you because you only have 40% strength, so the damage conversion isn't that great, but it's better than dying. Moving on to the Assimilate setup, which is running Corrosive Projection as its aura, and this is really good versus the Grenier and the Corrupted because it will strip away a portion of their armor. I don't have any Exilus mod in here because most of them don't do anything. You can't jump, so Aviator doesn't work. You can't sprint, so Rush doesn't work. You don't really need strength or range, so those are pointless. So I would basically have to format the frame to put on an Exilus mod that wouldn't do an awful lot, so I just didn't do it. Now this whole setup focuses around sustaining Assimilate, so we have Primed Continuity, Constitution, Augur Message, and Narrow-Minded, And this in combination with Streamline caps your Assimilate to only drain 1 energy per second. And for those of you that don't know, Assimilate is an augment for Nyx's Absorb that allows you to move around while channeling Absorb, but only at 50% speed, and it also disables rolling, jumping, and all the other parkour maneuvers. Now to stay in Absorb for as long as possible, I'm also using Primed Flow. The standard flow is gonna be just fine, and then to get a little bit of extra safety, I'm using Quick Thinking for when something bad happens and my Absorb pops. And the best arcane enhancement for this setup by far is Arcane Energize, which once again gives you a 40% chance to restore 100 extra energy to you and nearby allies whenever you pick up an energy orb. This helps immensely with energy sustain, which is really good on this setup because you're immortal as long as you have energy and you're channeling Absorb. This, however, is very much not necessary because you can get almost infinite, if not infinite, sustain of energy by running a Syndicate weapon with one of the Syndicate procs that restores your energy when it detonates. So something like the Supra Vandal with the augment or the standard Supra will do just fine. Synoid Simulor, Synoid Gamagore, and stuff like that. This will almost sustain your energy forever towards the end of the star chart as enemies start to give you a decent amount of affinity, so the Syndicate effect stacks faster, but it just gets better and better as the enemies go up in levels because they will give you more affinity to a point where it will basically go off as soon as it's off cooldown because of how much affinity you get for each enemy you kill. Just remember that if you are doing this and you're trying to sustain your energy this way, you must have the weapon equipped. If you unequip it, it will not charge the Syndicate effect. But you can kind of run whatever you want, though I would recommend running a melee weapon that has a step forward on its quick attack. I'm using the Galatine with Tempo Royale, Prime Fury, and Berserker, which allows you to move around about twice as fast by just doing quick attacks. It's also the perfect setup to run with explosive weapons because you can't stack Absorb with your own damage, so it just straight up ignores it. So it basically shields you from self-damage for free. This setup is pretty much immortal and can waddle its way through all the content in the game, assuming that you set it up properly. Also, pro tip here, if you're doing hijack, don't be a dumbass like me and put on redirection so it doesn't take you 10 hours to escort the Fomorian core to the end. It's just a very strong setup that gets better the more you invest into it. You can start it off with just a budget set of duration mods and a little bit of efficiency, but as you upgrade your mods and you get better mods and maybe even a weapon with a Syndicate effect that restores your energy or even Arcane Energize, it just gets better and better and better. And that's pretty much it for the builds. Now, both of these will of course work on the standard Nyx as well as Nyx Prime. They may just require a little bit more forma on the standard version, and if you're not quite sure how to forma it, the best way to do it in my opinion is to simply slap on all the mods, and if they don't fit, look for the one with the highest capacity drain that's shared between all your builds, forma for that, and do that until all the mods fit. And I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you have enjoyed the video and it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.